Well, I'd like to welcome everybody who's watching this video. My name is Graham White. This is Cory Chadwick. And we have talked for quite some time about putting together some information for men. So by way of introduction, I will ask Cory to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background. I'll introduce myself and talk a little bit about my background. But the reason that fundamentally we decided that we wanted to do this is because each of us has come to the place where, for the most parts of life, what men say that they want, that sense of purpose, a great relationship, the kind of woman that they want, the type of relationships that we have with our peers, with our friends, with our family, with our associates, how successful we've been in the businesses that we've done. Both Cory and I have managed to achieve that. Cory's process has been different than mine. He's done it what I would describe as making a series of conscious, intentional, productive steps along the way. And my process in getting here was trial and error and a lot of pain, a lot of regret, a lot of suffering in that process. So we occupy essentially opposite sides of the same coin. And we're in a position where men are coming to us and asking us, how do I get some of what it is that I see that you have? So, Cory, why don't you start and talk a little bit about your background, who you are, what you've done, and give people a sense of who you are on this call that have never encountered you before.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Graham. So, like Graham said, my name's Cory Chadwick. I'm a coach and a mentor to men who want to take the next great steps in their life. This is essentially men who are settling for good enough in their life. They know they're capable of more. They know they want to achieve something, find out what they're made of, and really live a full, happy, purposeful life. So I help men achieve that in all different areas. This goes back a long time for me. My growing up, it was hit and miss. I generally had a really good upbringing, but I went through some really tough times. That went on throughout my life. When I was an early adult, went through some tough times that really made me think about what I wanted to do with my life, or more so how I wanted to approach life. And I said that I wanted to live the happiest, most fulfilled life possible. And then I went about figuring out how to do that. And that was a lot of trial and error, figuring things out for myself, trying to understand what was going to get me there. But everything in my life, the most important thing was to be happy. Now, bit by bit, it just kept unfolding and unfolding, and my life just kept getting really, really incredible through really conscious, smart decisions, staying on a path, being true to myself and understanding what made me tick, not doing what made other people tick or tried to make other people happy. The results have really, really been phenomenal. Like I said, it came through some tough times, but on the flip side of that, things are really incredible now. I've been in this business for a little while now. My history before, like Graham mentioned, I had quite good success in certain businesses. I was in the bar business, the restaurant and bar business for a while. Did very, very well in that. But eventually I got to a point where it just wasn't exciting me. It wasn't driving me anymore. I really wanted to do something special that meant something to me, something I could really sink my teeth into, something that had purpose. And that wasn't it. And so I sold my business and I went looking for whatever it was. And I knew that I couldn't do something anymore that was just for the money. It wasn't going to scratch my itch. And there was something more that I needed. That's what brings me here today. This is the work that I do now, have been doing it for a little while now, and it's just the greatest because there is such a need for men to take the next step, to stop living their life in just the day-to-day and through the grind, and to really do something that they can put their mark on the world and say, I was here, I did something that mattered, and I lived a life that mattered. To me, that's such an important thing. I know there's a lot of men out there, if not most men out there, that resonate the same way, and they just don't know what to do about it, how to go about making a change or taking that next step in their life. So that's where people like, this is where Graham and I come in, and guys who do the same kind of work that we do. That's a little short about me. I guess that's it.
So both Cory and I have gone through the experience of making all the money that we can possibly spend, having all the kinds of experiences with a woman or with women that a man could possibly want, and you get to the end of that process and you still realize there's something more, there's something deeper than that. And so while we have the answers for what needs to happen to get all that, because I think both of us would acknowledge there's a part of us that wants to have that experience. Until you've had that experience where you've made all the money that you possibly can imagine making, you've had every kind of experience that you can possibly imagine dreaming of having happen with women, then there's something past that. There's something beyond that. And that's where we're at in our life, is living that, in being in purpose, being in service, bringing it all together. Both Cory and I are parents. He's a brand new dad. And I have 4 kids of my own plus 3 stepkids. And they're wonderful, amazing, but complicated individuals, unique, all on their own. And Cory's going to be in the process of figuring out exactly what he's got in the upcoming years. Both of us are in a committed relationship with the kind of woman that we intentionally went out and chose. We had the ability to essentially choose any woman that we could possibly want, with all the types of characteristics that were important to us. And we learned what we had to do to become the kind of man to attract that in, where the choice was ours, rather than hoping that someone would accept us with the condition that we were in at the time. And both of us have come through, at some points in our lives, some extraordinarily challenging experiences. Some of his were a little bit further back than mine. 7 years ago, I ended the marriage that I was in. Walked away from a multi-million-dollar fortune, restarted my life, restarted my business. In the process, I broke my back in a paragliding accident. I wasn't sure if I was going to live or ever walk again. Met an extraordinary woman, realized I wasn't at the place in my life to offer the kind of woman that I wanted, what she was looking for in return, and then spent a number of years of doing the things and taking the steps to make all that happen and rebuilding my life. So what we wanted to talk about on the call today is the distinction between the dreaming and the doing. And this is a really, I think, big subject that has been talked about over and over and over in personal development. And just for context, for those of you who have never met me before, about 13 years ago, I built and created what became the world's largest personal development coaching program. We got about 20,000 people in it, 150 coaches. So I've been in this business and in this type of process for a long time, and have a lot of perspective on it. And what I watched in that process was that it's more about just having some information. It's more than just having a formula. There's some other pieces that need to be there, and particularly for men. We all have this same vision of the kind of man that we know that we could be, or at least that we want to be. The kind of man we believe that if we were that, we could have everything that we want in life. And I think both Cory and I would say that the path to becoming that kind of man is different than certainly I imagined it as a young man or as a teenager, and what those qualities are. And the difference between dreaming about who that man can be and what those qualities are, which is, number one, just having a bunch of money does not make you the kind of man that you want to be. Having a bunch of power doesn't make you the man that you want to be. Being able to score with as many women as you want, the answers aren't in that. It's in something else. And so figuring out what is that formula. Cory, when you were talking, it was interesting because you talked about wanting to be happy and setting that intention. I didn't set that intention. That's probably why some of the steps that you took look different than they were for me. I decided I wanted to achieve certain standards, and that I would become happy once I achieved those standards, and discovered that it's not the standard of and those big successes that made me happy. It was something else. It was the quality of the human being that I was choosing to be that made that happen.
Sure.
So, maybe something that would be interesting, I think, for people that are listening is, like, how did you come to that wise type of approach, which was, I'm going to approach life in a way where I'm asking myself the question, what do I need to do to be happy, rather than the approach that I took, which was, what do I need to do to be rich, to be powerful, for people to think that I'm important, and to be able to score with women?
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying, when I was younger especially, it was about those benchmarks, about becoming rich and powerful and women, all of those things that pretty much every guy goes through and thinks that's the path to happiness. And I'm not saying it's not all very cool. It really is. And it took me a while to figure out how that fit into what I really wanted in life. when I was younger, I grew up pretty quickly. My parents were split together. It wasn't a rough childhood or anything like that, but it gave me perspective on a lot of things. And then when I was a teenager, I got hit with a pretty freakish brain virus that knocked me out of commission for quite a while. Um, and again, perspective. It's you're growing up quickly and seeing the world in a different way. When I was 21, my mother, who was bipolar, she took her own life, and obviously that's a really, really hard thing to deal with. And that's what shaped my world, I think, the most from that point on, because I thought so much about if somebody was at a point where it was so hard on them that the best option for them was to end it all. What gets somebody there? Now, obviously, in her case, it was a medical condition, but there are so many other people out there who are unhappy. And I just said that this is obviously the worst it can get. When somebody takes their own life, that's the worst of the worst for them, and they've had enough and they can't go on anymore. And what's the complete opposite of that? I want the opposite of that. I want whatever it is that's going to make me the most fulfilled, the most happy, the most excited to be alive. And so I started figuring out why and how I needed to go about doing that sort of thing. Again, because your life really gets put in perspective when some really big things happen and they rock your world a little bit or a lot of bit. And so that's what changed for me. That's when it became being happy is the most important thing. Now I got to go figure out how to do that. Now, it wasn't like I was starting from ground zero, because I was always a really, really happy kid. I was smart, I was ambitious, lots of friends, great relationships with my family, all that sort of thing. Um, but then you got to take it to the next level. You've got to do something that's sustainable for the rest of your life, not just flash in the pan, hope things work. I mean, we all know that we have our moments where we feel really, really happy and things feel great, but then a lot of the time we crash down again. And a lot of it's those ebbs and flows of life, and they're always going to happen. But the question is, do you want to let life dictate how happy you are? Do you want the circumstances of the world to dictate how happy you can be and how fulfilled you can be? Or do you want to take control of your own life and make something happen? So that's something that became very, very important to me.
You know, what's interesting in your answer about looking for what makes you happy is that it was created out of the circumstances that you were in and how you set that to be what you were pursuing. And I realize as you're saying that, I set my standards for what I was going after based on my circumstances. Mm-hmm. So my experience that was formative for me was I was alone. I was rejected. I had zero access to the girls when I was in junior high and high school, and I was picked on. I was beaten up. Like the bottom of the pecking order person that the bullies would find and pick on and chase down. So I decided I wanted to be the opposite of that. And the opposite of that for me was to be physically strong and powerful, to be successful, to be highly desirable to women. And so that's what I went after. I decided I'm going to figure out how to become the kind of guy that no one can ever hurt or pick on or bully. And I spent 4 years working out, lifting weights, bodybuilding, getting to be just a physically large human being. I took up competitive boxing, and then I set my mind to what is it that you need to do to become the most what I thought at the time was attractive version to women. So the clothes that I wore and the muscles that I sported, and the attitude that you had when you go out, the jewelry, whatever it is that we do, that we throw on as some disguise to the person, that the incompetent individual that we feel that we are inside. And so my guess is for every one of us, both you and I, and for the people that are watching this video, those choices that we make early on are going to be formed in response to maybe what we don't want. We decide what we want based on what we don't want. And I think that'd be a great question for people that are watching this to examine. What made you decide what success was? Was it the actual intention of something positive that mattered, or was it avoiding the frustration and pain of whatever it was that hurt you at some point?
I'd say it was a little bit of both. Like I mentioned, with the situation with my mom, that was one really extreme end of the spectrum, and so it really let me see that there are huge ranges within that spectrum. You can decide where you go, assuming you can decide, and again, we're not including the medical conditions here. But the other thing was you set these benchmarks. I set these benchmarks of you're looking around in society and it says, hey, do this to be happy. So get rich if you want to be happy and have all the women if you want to be happy, things like that. So I went out to make money. I thought this is one of those things that's going to help me really be happy. Now, this isn't me telling you at all that money is good or bad or anything like that. I still like money. It's just that money as a driver is never going to scratch the itch for you. It's never going to fill something that you're looking to be filled. That's why you have so many people out there who are, say, middle-aged men who spend their lives busting their asses to make as much money as they can, and they're successful and they make that money, and then they're not happy.
Yeah.
There's so many other things missing in their lives. You see this happening all the time. Now, some of them are happy, but some of them aren't happy. Clearly, it's money is not the answer to that issue. It's just kind of something that goes along for the ride. And that goes with so many other things. We get confused with that, thinking here's the answer when really it's not. It just seems like the best way to go.
I think what happens is the results of being the kind of man that we want to be are having abundance in every area of life. They're symptoms of what's going on underneath. And so when we pursue the symptoms as if that's going to get us the kind of characteristics that we're looking for, it fails. And when you do something out of pure willpower, I'm going to do this because I'm mad in response to something else, which is how I approach life. I'm going to prove that I'm not that negative end of the spectrum that I've experienced by going out and creating these symptoms at the positive end. It's never enough. You can never make enough money. You can never sleep with enough women. You can never have enough power. It is never ever enough, because inside that thing that we need to actually have to feel happy isn't satisfied. And what I've observed is that there's different levels of willpower that exist in individuals. Their ability to drive themselves through that. And what I've seen is you do not need to be one of the massively driven people if where your energy is coming from is true to the core of who you are and what matters to you.
Right.
And this is where I've seen people that have what I call the laziness gene, where they dream and they dream and they dream and very little gets done because and they're classified as dreamers. They're scolded as being dreamers. They look at other people around them that are achieving big things, making big things happen, and beat themselves up for not having that kind of drive. I would describe myself as a inherently lazy kind of person. I'm always looking to get 100-to-1 return on anything that I put in. I actually think that's a good thing. Creative people are really good at coming up with these brilliant ways of creating an incredible amount of value with a short burst of energy. So when you're coming from that place of who it is that you're really meant to be and what you're here to do, and finding and connecting to that purpose, and not doing it based on trying to escape being alone or trying to escape being poor or trying to escape being rejected by women or friends or society or not having power, but focusing on you and why you're here and what you're doing. The ability to do that means, and I think this is really true for both of us, we wake up every single day fired up to do what it is that we do, that we get to do with our business. There's not enough time in our day to enjoy the process of what we're doing.
That's true.
Right? It's like it's not the day isn't too short to get the shit done that we've got to get done, and there's more left on the plate for tomorrow. It's that there was a whole day, and we can't wait to get up again tomorrow to do it again and to do it again. And it feels like there's a never-ending process in that. It's not a day, a week, a month, a year. We'll be able to do that for the rest of our life. And I think that's the big score that guys are looking for.
Huge score. It's massive. And the reason I think it's so huge is because guys like you and I, we don't look at this as work. It's like you said, you get up in the morning and you're so pumped to go do this thing that you get to do. It's not going to your job. It's going to live your purpose and live your life the way you were meant to live it. That's such an incredible thing, and it's such an amazing feeling. Every day, every minute of your day, and every second of that minute is that feeling. It's the same thing. And what it really comes down to here is it's not finding a job or finding work. It's finding what you're here to do. It's finding your purpose and living with intention. And that doesn't mean it's some singular purpose that I'm here to accomplish one specific task. It's not that at all. There's a big difference between that and living with purpose, living with intention. When you get to do that, you've got to make sure your whole life is in alignment. And the better you get at that, everything in your life is working towards the same thing. It's working towards the same stuff. So it's just amazing. You don't feel like you have all these things that are out of alignment in your life working against each other. A lot of people talk about being successful in one thing. Well, I'm successful in business, or I'm successful in my family, or I'm successful with my friends, whatever it is, but all these other things are out of whack. And when those other things are out of whack, it just stops you from moving forward with all of your passion and excitement and everything that you've got. And that's such an important thing. So just like you said, Graham, it's getting up every day and you just can't wait to go out there and do more and live it more. It's incredible. It's the best.
And I think when you have that approach, the things that you need to do to make that happen don't feel as uncomfortable or difficult. So, at least from my experience, a lot of the steps that I've taken to get to this point have been digging myself out of holes that I've gotten into. But the work to do that, once I've come at it with the right kind of energy and intention, doesn't make it feel miserable. So, for example, like 5 years ago, as I'm starting life all over again, no business, wasn't able to see my kids at that point, was in a fight for that, dealing with multiple issues with real estate and a divorce and lawyers and all this other kind of stuff that's going on. And I still have a pretty big life within the context of that, of challenges that happen. It doesn't feel miserable. It didn't feel, so I went back and I started with a job again. I started working part-time in a group home, dealing with the most, they're mentally challenged individuals who would have violent and sometimes homicidal fits when they were upset. And like a lot of people would think that that's a tough job or an awful job or maybe bottom of the barrel kind of job. I showed up there thinking I have something really valuable that I can give. I wasn't a special, no one knew my background. I just showed up. I needed to be doing something and paying the bills. And it was hard work. And for a lot of people, swallowing their ego to take a step back, like a year before, I'd been a multimillionaire, starting my whole life over again, making, I don't know what it was, $19 an hour or something like that, rebuilding it. But it didn't feel like crap. It didn't feel like I was starting in crap because I knew that I could show up and be in purpose wherever I was, in whatever that relationship was, whatever that context was. And having that kind of attitude is what makes that day feel like it matters. And it was also during that time that I first started writing the blog or the Facebook blog, What Evolved Women Want, that grew into having 50,000 followers, a book coming from that, multiple businesses that have been created out of that. Not because I was even intending to set up a business around that, but just from the energy of that intention. And then that evolved into, well, let's do something for men, and that set up the Modern Masculine Men. Then I met a bunch of other people and eventually in a roundabout way bumped into Cory and began meeting all these other individuals. So when you're beginning with intention and you're beginning with purpose and doing it with that energy rather than doing it from a lack or trying to chase something down that you think is going to make you happy, it gets you to that place where you want to be. And maybe I'm a little bit happier today being, having the finances and being a bunch of money coming in and getting paid to do what I love. But I loved what I was doing even when I was making $20 an hour.
Right.
I loved the opportunity to be able to just sit there and write without demands. We'd work these long shifts, sometimes late at night. People would be asleep. Everyone else that I was around, they'd sit there and they'd watch TV. I was writing, I was researching, I was doing my thing because I had purpose in every moment that I was living in life. And I think that's one of those distinctions and the difference between the dreamers and the doers. When there's enough reason for you to do that and you're connected with it, you can't help but take every opportunity that comes to you and live into it.
Absolutely. And it doesn't feel like like you said, it's not a chore. It's not something that you have to do. It's something that you want to do because you feel so alive doing it. Doing this kind of work, I feel way more alive than I ever have before. And I was really alive before. Yeah. I had an awesome life. I've had an awesome life for a really, really long time. And now it's out of control in a really good way. And that comes again with living with that purpose and intention, and bringing it all together in a way that you're doing something that is so in alignment with who you are. Graham, you mentioned that thing about whatever it is that you're doing that with purpose and doing that with intention. This isn't a one size fits all kind of thing. And people get stuck a lot of the time thinking this is the way to do it. This is the exact path to do it. There's not a one size fits all. Different things make different people tick. And so different things are going to make different people happy and excited and fulfilled. And it's up to each individual to really, really find out, however they need to go about doing that, what makes them tick and what they're all about and what's going to give them that feeling of being alive and living with purpose and everything that comes with that. And I really think that anything that's shy of that is robbing yourself of such a tremendous opportunity. You have the opportunity to go out there and live the most incredible life possible, and either because you don't know where to start or you don't know what steps to take or you're afraid to do something, whatever your reasons are, and they're all legitimate, but whatever they are, it doesn't happen unless you go out there and do something and make a change. Um, and it's tough for guys like Graham and I to look at other people and say, oh man, you're missing out on this awesome party here. And just come along for the ride. And a lot of guys want to come and they do come. And a lot of guys don't. And they just sit and they say, that's not for me. And I'm going to go through the grind and I'm going to go through my day to day, and teach their own. There's no judgment there. Whatever works for you works for you. But if you want more, if you're looking for something special, you got to do something about it.
I think it's the ability to show up in whatever moment you're in and choosing to be the kind of man that it is that you want to be.
Yeah.
And there's just as much value in showing up in the small moments of life with the intention of the kind of man that you want to be and how you want to live, and particularly the challenging moments. One of the things that was really insightful to me talking with Cory just the other day about the conversations that were happening in his relationship were things that they were willing to talk about and go through that for most couples only come up when they're at the point of divorce, the most uncomfortable questions, or when they're in the middle of a fight. The courage that it takes for a man to discuss those things that are uncomfortable or that might be uncomfortable for your partner. The questions and the conversations that need to happen in a business context with a partner. How you need to approach a friend that's doing something that you disagree with or that's affecting your relationship. Talking with a parent about the dynamics that are happening in that relationship or a sibling. The way that you choose to show up in all of those moments of life count as much or more as the ones where you're showing up and looking to score money, score women, score power. It's who you're being in those smaller moments, those quieter moments, and oftentimes in the moments where you're alone, where no one knows what's going on and knows what's happening. And
Absolutely. Sorry, go on.
I know for myself, I lived for a long, long time with many years with shame and guilt about the choices that I was making as an individual, things that people didn't know about. And for anybody listening, whether that's things to do with drugs or substances or the type of integrity or honesty that you're living with in life or your job or that relationship, things around sexuality, pornography, whatever those things and those choices are, if you have guilt and shame around that and you're hiding it, it doesn't work in life to have one part of your life that's hidden, one part of your life that you're hoping no one ever finds out about. And the challenge in that is finding a space that's safe enough to work through it, to start with where you're at today and to appreciate and to acknowledge that and realizing that it's not as much a switch that you flip on and off for something where you have regrets around. It's a process and a journey. And one of the reasons that I specifically connected with Cory is I realized there is such a rarity of people who can hold space for a man to go through and take on that part of things where they need to express and be vulnerable around and not feel judged and not feel condemned and not feel like they're being told that they're wrong, but someone who can understand and accept that and say, okay, great, now we know where you're at. Where do you want to be? And let's work through this process until you can get there. So
Absolutely.
I think that'd be really cool for you to talk a little bit about, Cory. What it's so typical among men, for fathers to sons to be really hard and really tough about what the standards are, and it's black and white. It's like
Mhm.
either you're this or you're nothing.
Right.
When we have our coaches in sports, it's either you're winning or you're a loser.
Sure.
Even in our relationships among other guys, it's either there's this understated thing like either you're the top guy in the dynamics of what's going on, or you're the one who's either given up on being it, or you're trying to be it. There's not a space of grace and dignity to self-examine, and even guys to other guys, we push, we tease, we lovingly insult, there's this dynamic of kind of cruelty that's inherently built into relationships to toughen each other up, which is fundamentally probably a good thing, but mostly that's all we've experienced. One guy to another, either we don't talk about what's really going on, or we're just completely judgmental. And guys are so afraid to open up and talk about their insecurities, the bullshit that they're living with in their life, that kind of thing. How did you make it to the point where you could get comfortable, going through that process, and why is it you're able to do that for men when other guys seem to be so uncomfortable making that happen?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot to that. I'll start with just absolutely agreeing with you that it really is tough for men to take that step and to open up for all those reasons, for being taught, be tough and be a man, and you've got to figure everything out on your own, and, don't be a pussy, stop whining. And these are real things that all of us deal with all the time. And it's tough, so it makes you want to not open up, and it makes you think that you do have to figure everything out on your own. Obviously, the issue there is that you don't have all the answers and you can't figure everything out on your own. No matter how hard you try, no one is capable of that. And you need someone to help you get there. You need someone to help guide you along the way and help you figure things out. And then if you're not doing that, you're just going to be stuck with your pride and sitting there thinking, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to do this on my own. It's a recipe for disaster. I promise you that. I see it happen all the time with guys who just want to do it all on their own. And a lot of the reason they're doing it all their own all on their own is they think they're supposed to, they think they have to, and if they don't do it that way, they're somehow less of a man. And it's ridiculous, quite frankly. It's not ridiculous that they feel that way, but the notion of that is ridiculous, that you're less of a man if you're trying to be a better man, if you're trying to be the greatest man you can be. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to open up and to be vulnerable and to be honest. It's not the opposite of that. It's strength. It's courage. And people think that's wimpy. I promise you the guys who think that's wimpy are guys who are just not going to go anywhere with the kind of man they want to be. But the guys who are ready to open up and be honest and be vulnerable and take those steps, those guys are in a great place because it only gets better from there. Where I come into that is I recognize that space is needed. If I came in there and started yelling at you and berating you for not doing what you were supposed to do, there's no way you're going to open up and there's no way you're going to make any progress. So I realize the importance of creating that space for guys where it is safe, where you're in a place of your goal and your intention of creating something more and creating something special. And it's not about knocking you down and tearing you apart for whatever it is that you haven't figured out yet. It's about helping you figure it out and helping you figure out what works for you and what's going to get you what you want. So there's that real tricky balance there. But at the end of the day, you've just got to decide what you want. Is it more important to you to be proud and puff out your chest and say, I'm going to do this all on my own like a big, tough, strong man? Or do you want to get results? And that's it. You either get to be proud or you get to have results.
Yeah, and I think the irony that both of us see in that is the guys that put on the biggest show about how tough they are ultimately are the ones that feel like the youngest child inside. Wherever that victim part of them started really young, and they learned to put on that really overbuilt exterior.
Sure.
And it takes a pretty extraordinary and special individual to make someone like that feel safe. If you're a person and you recognize, yeah, you know what, that's my truth. On the outside, I put on this big show about how successful or how strong or whatever that is, how many women like me, that kind of thing, and underneath you feel like a fraud. it's if you've been living with that for years or decades, it's then becomes really difficult to know who you can be vulnerable to, because now everyone who knows you as the facade that you've created, and you
Hmm.
got to find someone new and that's not part of your circle to begin having that conversation with, where you can open up and be vulnerable and say, this is who I really feel like on the inside, and I need to figure out how to make this match the image that I'm trying to project, or make the real me the kind of person that's able to get the things that I want, that I've been trying to do with this image that I've been projecting.
Sure.
And it takes a pretty special kind of individual to make men feel safe that way. And when I first met you, Cory, I said to you, I'm not really great with that. I think I'm a little bit too tough. I'm a little bit too intense. Probably in the time that you've known me, I've gotten a little bit softer and more understanding. But there's a really kind of perfect recipe of the kind of guy that can do that. And to some degree, it's I think it's a person who's born with that, and to some degree, they've earned a portion of that.
Hmm.
And I think in your process, in your journey, when I was asking about this, you've always found yourself in that mentor role in your relationships and with friends, in the business that you run, and the people that come to ask you questions. When did you kind of understand and know that, hey, I'm a person who has this to offer, and part of my purpose in life, and one of my roles in life is to be a mentor to the people that have questions? When it first dawned on you that was showing up over and over and over?
That happened pretty early. I couldn't tell you an exact age that it happened, but I was pretty young. I always felt like I could be of service to people and could help people. People just generally getting stuck on things, wanting to figure something out or move forward and didn't know how to do it. And I felt like I could help them do that. And so I did. And I didn't usually think much of it. It was just one of those things that this is something that I happen to be good at. So I'm going to share that and help whoever I can in my life do what they want and move forward and be happy. And I was obviously doing this for myself as well, but I took a lot of pride in helping people out along the way. And just the older I got, the better I got at it. I learned more. I knew more about the world. I knew more about myself. I learned more about what made other people tick. And so I just became better at it and of greater service to people in doing that. Like I said, it just kind of snowballed to the point where I said, this is what I'm here to do, and I got to do it. Uh, but it's always been a part of my life, and it continues to be, even obviously not in a professional level, but just a personal level. That's who I am. It's what I'm about.
I know it's interesting, and I tag team you in to work with clients, particularly the men that I'm working with, and the work that I do is working with guys that have a great big gift. They can do something and change the world in some really big, amazing, profound way. They know that about themselves, and they're sick of being stuck and not making it happen. They know they've got it in them, and they're just frustrated that they're not making it happen. They've got some type of sticking point, and so I bring Cory in on those calls when it's not a strategic how to do it, how we're going to set this business up and brand it and market it and all that kind of stuff, but where we need to work with the man that's there on the inside, the man that's guilting himself and blaming himself and shaming himself and feeling stuck. That's when I ask you to come on those calls and create that space that both feel safe. And I mean, the other part of that is not just feeling safe, but having someone you trust to push you, having someone that you trust to say, I know you can do this. I'm not a cheerleader here to blow smoke up your ass and to say the world's easy and the world's great and you can do anything. But on this, I know you can do this. You're capable of this. And so this week or today, here's the stuff that we're going to do. And when you have someone on the other side that you can trust in their opinion, you can trust their perspective, it allows us to let go of some of that responsibility and the question of like, oh my God, can I walk this tightrope? Can I jump out of this plane? Will the parachute open? That kind of feeling. And they're like, yeah, you know what? You can do it. I'm right here with you. We're going to do it in tandem. We train for this. You're going to make it happen. And after you've done it a couple times yourself, you're going to love it. You're going to love the rush of it, the feeling of it. You're going to believe in yourself. You're going to do it by yourself. And hey, one day you may even become the trainer, the mentor yourself.
Right.
And
Sure.
that's that kind of thing that I think is a pretty unique individual. And when I first encountered you, I thought this is the kind of person that more men need to experience and connect with. And so if you're watching this and you've been looking for that person that you didn't have in that role, that coach that never showed up, that absolutely believed in you, both the ability to encourage you when you felt down and the ability to give you that push when you weren't stepping up to your best. Most of us have never had that. I didn't have that in a father. I had a pretty decent actual coach at one point along the way who pushed me in a way that I felt was uncomfortable at the time, but he saw the greatness in me, at least in that context. And that changed my life. That person in that context changed my life, so I know how important it is. So if you're feeling stuck in that space and you can't figure out what needs to happen to move forward, you've tried your way of trying to make life happen and it hasn't gotten you the results that you want, or you feel like you've got this giant facade, this thing that you're projecting out to the world, and it's all just bullshit, smoke and mirrors. And the person you really are on the inside, you're not happy with. There is a way to make those two things match, and a process to go through that. And you can either do it by trial and error, and mostly it's fails. You're lucky if you get 1 out of 20 successes when you do the process by trial and error. Just straight statistically, 1 in 20 is pretty good. That is a painful fucking way to do life. Or you can work with someone who understands it, who knows you, who understands the process, and who's succeeded at it, and has all the things in life, and has accomplished all those same things that you're looking for, and can tell you what the path is. Can't do the work for you, but they can tell you, here's the next smart, most successful step. That's going to get you way better odds than the 1 out of 20.
Sure.
So if somebody wants to begin exploring this and doing this kind of work and having some support and mentorship in the process, what would you suggest?
First thing, I think that every man out there, and I'm not talking just older guys, this is anybody of any age. Let's say you're starting from teenager through 60, 70, however old you are. You've got to look yourself in the mirror and you've got to start asking yourself some questions, and some tough questions. Graham went through a bunch of those, and it's asking yourself, what kind of a man do I want to be? What kind of a life do I want to live? Am I doing that now? And if I'm not, why not? And then, are you ready to do something about it? It's really important to have that conversation with yourself first. Now, my guess is you've probably had that with yourself a lot already in your life. Maybe not every day, but it comes up because you can't ignore those feelings that you have. You can't ignore that fire that might be burning in you to do something or step out of the man that you are now and into something more something that you're capable of becoming. But that's an individual thing. That's not going to be across the board for everybody. That's something that you've got to figure out for yourself. And you've got to decide if it's time for you now to do something about it. Now, if it is time for you to do something about it, I absolutely recommend working with somebody who can help get you there. Maybe it's me, maybe it's Graham, maybe it's somebody else. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be me or Graham, but it needs to be somebody that you're comfortable with to get you there. If you're interested in what I do and the kind of work that I do, you can check me out online, CoryChadwick.com. That's CoryChadwick.com. You can check out my website. You can read a little bit about me, see the kind of work I do. If you have any questions, by all means, get in touch with me. But it's really important, guys. It's important to live your life the way you were meant to live it, not the way you think you were supposed to live it, the way you were meant to live it. Make something happen. Make a change. Take some action. Really take the horns here. Make yourself an exceptional life.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm going to leave the call there. The people who want to get in touch with me are going to have to figure out how to do that. I don't make myself easy to track down. It's easy enough if you want to make it happen. But Cory and I are going to keep doing these in the process of this and sharing different steps along the way. And both of us have worked with mentors. How did we get here? We set the intention one day that we were going to find the kind of mentor that was living the kind of life that we wanted to experience. And once we found them, we did whatever it took to earn the right to work with them. You can work with informal mentors, people that just, you show up in life and say, hey man, I want to, what do I need to do to be around you and be in your life and to take on your wisdom? You can do it in a formal process with someone like Cory, but the process of trial and error is a long, painful one, and I don't know if we got enough years at this point to do it through that process and end up where ultimately that we want. But like I said, Cory and I are going to keep doing these recordings, And wherever you find this, you can add your questions, and we'll probably add that to the next process in the next videos that we put out there. So thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Have a good one.